It's Reed Young, aka Shuda here. I'm going to be going over a hand where the poster has a question about continuation betting. And you guys can see that he raises to 3.5 times the big blind on the hijack, and only the button calls him. So we're heads up to a low and draw heavy flop with bottom pair. So I'm sure you guys are fairly used to getting played back on these types of boards a lot. It's a good board to play back at it as the button, because it's going to be tough for us, especially if a lot of our range is high card rich. So if we have a lot of like king queen offsuits and things like that, which you definitely want to have from the hijack, you're just not going to hit this flop as often. So the reason that people can successfully raise continuation bets here and expect to get a large number of folds is because people are continuation betting these types of boards too often. So let's have that thought in the back of our heads as we go through this hand. So we don't really have like a big sample on the villain, and it's just kind of an awkward spot to continue. Like if we bet the flop, is it for value? Is it a bluff? Or are we just trying to take it down immediately? What do we do on future turns? And then the river after that, it gets pretty complex and convoluted quickly. So what I would propose you guys do is consider the situation as a whole and not just the fact that you have ace-3 here. So we've already talked about if you continuation bet, you expect to be raised here a fair amount of the time. So your adjustment should be, you don't want to continuation bet as much. And if we're not continuation betting as much, then our opponent can bet when we check to him a lot more often and win the pot. So what does that mean? That means we need to also construct a flop check raising range. So if we check raise this flop, we kind of get the best of all worlds, as long as, and then this is kind of the important part of it, as long as you have a balanced check raising range. So you can do this with heart draws, with overpairs, with king queen some of the time, just a bunch of stuff. This is a great example of a hand to do it with, because you don't really want to check call and put yourself in a pretty terrible reverse implied odds situation. Even if the turn's the ace of hearts, check calling 2 more times is going to be kind of miserable. I mean, our opponent can value bet pretty effectively, and most people don't just check call a flush draw here. So especially at 100 no limit, he's probably just going to assume that we don't have a flush ever, and then because we have ace-3 and not a flush draw, that's really going to hurt us here. So you guys can think about check calling flush draws. That's a whole other idea. We can talk about that later. But for this hand, I would propose that we check raise some percentage of the time and continuation bet hands of similar strength some percentage of the time as well. I would treat it like a weaker semi-bluff more so than like a value hand. If we take it down on the flop, it's awesome. If we don't, then we can represent some cards on the turn and river and use this hand that has a decent amount of equity to balance our barreling range. So for instance, if we were barreling hands like 10s and better down to the river, just to throw out some random hands, and our flush draws. Say if the flush draw hit the river, we might want to have a hand as weak as this with which we could bluff the river. But if our range is only flush draws and 10s or better, our river betting range is going to be strong as shit. So you want to make sure you can take some air type hands like this with you to the river, but also you want to make sure you're not just continuation betting every single flop. And I invite you guys to start asking yourself these questions and try to put some pen to paper and figure out some numbers that go with what I'm saying. I'm not going to put that on YouTube, but I hope you guys did learn a little bit something from this video. And if you like, I'm doing a special video for 300 subscribers on the YouTube channel, and I'll put an annotation on this video so you guys can check that out. It's just like a quick little blurb about how to vote and things like that. So just a way of saying thanks to you guys for watching these videos. And yeah, I guess I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.